Hi, and welcome to Behind the Badge. I'm Chief Edward Dunn of the Falmouth Police Department, and great to have you here. Today we have a really important subject to talk about, which is domestic violence. And I have a couple of guests with me here. I have our civilian domestic violence advocate, Carmen Espinoza. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And from the Falmouth District Court, we have Don Coughlin. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chief.
This is a really important subject that a lot of times people don't want to talk about, but really needs to be talked about. And we have some great programs here in this community that we want to share with everybody. Maybe we'll start with you, Carmen, first. Just to have an idea. Carmen, you work for the town of Falmouth.
Yes, I am a contractor, civilian employee, domestic violence advocate for the Falmouth Police Department. I'm also a counselor at Independence House for domestic violence victims in their Falmouth office down on Main Street.
Yeah, and you work, what, 3 days or 4 days for us? Or
3 days for
3
you
days.
guys and 2 days for Independence House.
Yeah, and you have an office right in the police department, and you work with victims, but you also work hand in hand with our officers, which is important.
Yes, my job is to reach out to victims of domestic violence and offer services and referrals that they may be looking for. Part of that job was created in hand with Independence House to be a liaison for the community, to make the transition of a victim's incident or interaction with law enforcement streamline into our Independence House services, counseling, financial aid, food banks, housing. So it just takes away that barrier. At 3 in the morning, somebody's talking with a couple of cops. By 9 o'clock the next morning, she's not going to remember a word.
Right.
So we have a packet, which I didn't bring, that the officers give all victims of domestic violence, and in it is resources for the different services here in Falmouth. Dawn's card's in there, so that they know there's services out here. But again, it's 3 in the morning.
Right.
So when I come in at 8, sometimes 7, the next working day, I'll give these people a call if it's safe and just start working with them to see where they're at, what they're looking for, what they would like to do in this particular moment.
Yeah, and that's been real helpful for our officers too.
Yes.
Because, I mean, we get the initial call, we go there, we either make an arrest or we at least advise them of, depending on the situation, advise the victims of their rights and things like that. And then we do give them packets of information from the courts, from Independence House, and the way you have, and it's been a huge help. I think it's been a big help. I mean, the numbers, they keep going up instead of down. We would, unfortunately, we would hope they would go down. We work very hard between everybody to bring them down, but like I said, it's one of those things that it's sad, but the numbers are still going up.
Well, for me, the numbers going up is a good thing. It means people are speaking up.
That's true.
They're reaching out. They're coming in to ask questions. They're going to court to find out their options in court. The more numbers means the more people are speaking out. And so I look at that as a good thing. And they have gone up. Part of the reason is for 11 years, the community has found out there's someone there that will work with them without law enforcement involvement. You can come in, you can have all kinds of issues with your partner. I'm not a cop, so I don't have to arrest. I do have to be confidential. I'm a mandated reporter, and those standards are followed, but we can work for 2-3 weeks, maybe a month together before she's ready to get out.
Yeah,
and that's important.
And that's important for the community to know too. It doesn't have to initiate with a phone call to the police department having a police officer show up. No. You can just reach out. Correct, even with you, Don?
Absolutely, Chief. Getting the word out so there's an understanding, there's resources, whether it's at the police location, your location, with us. I'm on the staff of Independence House. I have been for about 8 years. I'm a court advocate.
Okay.
I work in the courts. I'm there to support survivors coming in, seeking restraining orders. Many times I'll get a call from Carmen. Somebody's coming in, there's been an arrest, they need some help. The court is very intimidating. Yes. I don't care who you are. You come in, there's a clear and absolute process in which the court works. I'm there to break all of those barriers down, work through the paperwork, which is there for everybody, and get them into the system, get them in front of a judge. I stand with them. I'm not an attorney, but I can't speak for them, but just the moral
Support. That's important.
Yeah, absolutely, Chief. And I'm one of 8. We're in the other courts here in the county, in Orleans, as well as in the 2 courts in Barnstable. So it's called Safe Plan, whatever. We're there to help the survivor. And the special part of it is that we have the opportunity, when the client is ready, to get him to a person like Carmen, who's a counselor as well here on Main Street. We have an office. Our main office is in Hyannis. We've got an office right here in Main Street. It's staffed with counselors. The better part of the week, we have our main office in Hyannis. We have our office in Orleans with counselors, as well as the connection with the other police departments. But it's a special situation for the survivor, so we can help them get through this. It's not an immediacy, it's long-term for them, as Carmen will tell you. But we're there for them, and we support them all along the way. We have a website that an individual can go to. We have lots of information for them, referrals, support services, anything we can do for the survivors.
Yeah, and that's important. And I think you had mentioned it briefly there. It's when they're ready, because not a lot of times does it happen instantly. Correct?
Yeah, it's part of the job is to have patience and give them their time. We know what we'd like to see, we know what we'd like to hear, but we're not them, and everyone's situation is unique. So patience is a big thing. If you don't have it, you can't work in this field.
And the reality is, as intimidating as the court is, it's still friendly. The judges, the probation officers, everyone within the court understands the sensitivity, and they bend over backwards, not only in this court, but all the other courts. So that's a real key issue for us.
Yeah, it's important having programs like this available to the victims.
Absolutely, Chief, absolutely.
In part of all that, there are programs that are kind of offshoots from that.
Yep.
I guess we could call it. In fact, last night I was at the Selectmen's meeting, and there was a proclamation for White Ribbon Day.
Oh, okay.
So, because I know there's a couple of them on the Cape, so we really want to talk about what is White Ribbon Day.
Well, White Ribbon Day is a campaign that was developed from an awful incident that happened in Montreal, Canada in 1989. And what it was a 25-year-old man went into a college and murdered 14 women and then murdered himself. So his letters they found later were very direct that he was anti-feminist. Women have ruined his life, and so on and so forth. And what that did, though, was for the country of Canada, who had never seen something like that, they were very horrified. And the nation started speaking about this topic of violence against women. Not specific to domestic, but violence against women in all aspects. And it was the men rising up and saying, we're not going to let this happen no more. So for 2 years, the media, the magazines, the newspapers were printing tons of stories on violence against women stories where they had never touched them before. After 2 years of this, Parliament decided we're going to make December 6th a national day of remembrance and, there it is, National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women.
Okay.
So every year they still celebrate that loss, but also the benefits that came out of it. And what that was is men finally got involved. And so a gentleman named Michael Kaufman, who's co-founder of the White Ribbon Day campaign, who started it in 1991, 2 years afterwards. He is a public speaker, an educator, a consultant to the UN. He has written the sexual harassment training manuals for the UN. Tens of thousands of people use these all across the world. He is a big proponent of gender equality, but using men to work alongside women was a concept that was hard to move forward in the 90s. So they struggled with that, but they persevered. So White Ribbon Day is the largest effort in the world of men working to end violence against women. It's in over 80 countries. The mission is to engage young men and boys in the goal of ending violence, to celebrate positive masculinity and maleness, where men do not condone, commit, or tolerate abuse. That movement has grown, and it's everywhere. Massachusetts has been celebrating it as a Commonwealth annual day for 12 years, 13 now. So Independence House has been doing it 8 years in partnership with the Yarmouth Police Department and the DA's office. The last 2 years it's been held at the Cape Cod Community College.
Right.
And the reason is we want to reach young men and boys. And when you rent a hotel and a conference room, it's a select group. So we're in the college cafeteria, 11 to 1 lunch.
Yeah.
They're all going through, men, women, girls, boys, teachers.
I think that was a great move.
I think so, because we are touching way more people. And while a lot of them walk by, they look and they see and they pick a card and they put it in their pocket. They do it slyly, and that's okay. We don't make a big deal about it. But I think it gives those women who are being victimized also the opportunity to say, I can get some info without going to get info at a domestic violence shelter. So lots of positives for that. Independence House is going to be March 5th on a Thursday.
Again, at the Cape Cod Community College?
Yep, in the cafeteria from 11 to 1.
Yeah.
And then Falmouth Public Library will be having theirs March 12th in the Herman Room from 9 to 10.
Right, and that's what the Falmouth Selectmen did the proclamation for last night.
Oh, wonderful.
So there's a proclamation, and they'll be serving that. I mean, it was voted last night, and they will be bringing it to the event in here in Falmouth. And that's this is the second year, I think, in
Yes.
Falmouth. Yeah, and the Falmouth Police Department, as well as all the police departments on Cape Cod, have been participating in White Ribbon Day, taking that pledge.
Yeah.
Our officers take that pledge with the, like you say, the DA office, the Yarmouth Police Department was kind of like the host, along with Independence House. So it's been a phenomenal event to get that word out. But you're absolutely right. When it was at the hotel, it was just law enforcement and in the courts and things like that. So
Service providers.
To open it up to the college, to get those young men and the women involved.
Exactly, Chief. When we were there last year, it was surprising how approachable the young men were. Just giving them some information. And as Carmen said, without scrutinizing the women walking around, they were seeking information. The college had a table there, and they have some individuals that work on domestic violence within the college scenario. We've been working with them not only with White Ribbon Day, but some other participating with them and their activities around domestic violence. But just a quick segue, Chief.
Sure.
This is some 2018 data, and it comes from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. The magnitude of this. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have been physically abused by their intimate partner. 1 in 5 women and 1 in 7 men have been physically abused to a significant degree where it required hospitalization. 1 in 5 women have been raped in their lifetime. The common denominator is men.
Right.
And what are men going to do to step up and say, no more, we just can't do this any longer as a society? This data speaks to, in this 2018 results, as many as 10 million people have been abused by their intimate partner.
Wow.
That's 1 year.
Huge problem.
A significant problem. And to have all of the support that we have, the police departments, all of the counselors within any of the agencies, and all the work that we do within the Independence House, focusing on getting the survivor the help they need.
Yeah. It saves lives. That's the goal, is saving lives.
No question, Chief. Spot on.
Yeah.
Spot on.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. Some of it is silent, as we've talked about. People don't want to come forward. They're embarrassed.
For the immigrant population, it's the issue of he's gonna be deported and I won't even get child support or
Right.
alimony. And we deal with that every day. And there's a lot of services out there to help women who are either immigrants themselves or married or partnered with an immigrant. You can get help. There are services, call our agency, we'll give you some numbers for people that can walk you through this and give you advice, because there really is help for an immigrant whose immigrant husband or partner is abusing her.
Yeah.
There is help.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been that way. I know from
It's like we talked about, it's getting the
experience.
word out there.
Yeah.
And letting people know what is
Exactly.
available to them. Because a lot of times they don't know what's available.
No, and most of these immigrants don't know English, but we have
Yeah,
Brazilian and Portuguese speaking counselors at Independence House.
Okay.
They will walk with them through whatever info they need, even if they do nothing, as long as they know what their options are. Maybe on 2 weeks later, she'll do what she was advised. So Independence House has counselors who speak the language and will help them.
Beautiful.
It's a constant problem, I think, is the language barrier.
Great. Don, a little bit, I mean, the White Ribbon event is great on the Cape, and it's throughout the Commonwealth, I believe, but we've
Yes.
pretty much focused on the Cape. What about the Independence Men's Action,
Good
which
question.
just spiraled off of that, didn't it?
Yeah, a good question. Back about 2 years ago, understanding that up until about a year and a half ago, it was only myself and one other person, a male, that was on the staff. The other person just happened to be a volunteer, but he'd been very involved with Independence House as a volunteer. Lucetta, who's the executive director, came to me because we had a couple of males come on the staff and said, look, we know what the issues are here, whether we like to talk about it, but it's men, and what are we going to do about that? So she came up with a plan. We've got a name, it's called the Men's Action Group. And we meet pretty much on a monthly basis. There's 5 of us. We have not only the staff, the 3 of us that are on staff, but a couple of others who are active members with us. And we're out there. We'll be at White Ribbon
Okay.
campaign as we were last year. And again, looking to focus on young men, or any men for that matter. And we talk about healthy relationships, what it is about equality, what it is interacting with your partner. And the focus is being able to talk about what the issues are and express your emotions. Guys, do we do
Right.
that?
Not so
No,
much.
Not so much. Yeah, we're in the majority, obviously, with that thought. So it's working. It's slow getting there. The good thing is also through Independence House, we're working with a high school with their athletic director and helping the athletes understand what a healthy relationship is all about. Some of them know, others kind of gaze off, but it's getting the word out. It's any man.
It's starting young, like you say, high school. That's awesome.
Absolutely, Chief. We've had other programs, our MVP program, Mentor and Violence program, that was in the schools at a lower grade level.
It's a junior high, right?
Yeah, junior
Oh, okay.
high. The interaction with them, again, focusing on the male population to understand that it is clearly unacceptable to hurt, abuse, control your partner. It's wrong. It's unhealthy. It's unhealthy for you, let alone the impact that you make on that other person.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's where we're at with that, Chief.
That's great. It sounds like another great program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when you reach out to the young men who come from domestic violence homes, that's going to make a big impact because they had no role models. They had no one to model after
And to break the cycle,
and to break that cycle.
right? Because
Give
that's
them
a lot of
something
times
else
that
to
is a
look up
cycle.
to.
If they grow up in a home where there's domestic violence, that's all they know, and that's how they learn.
It's learned. It impacts
Learned
them.
behavior, and it's tolerated. So other men speaking up and saying it's not tolerated anymore is a big step in our movement.
And that's what we work to. And it's multifaceted. The young men, any man, understanding what it's all about. Because I think we talked about this. There's the silence issue.
Right.
It's embarrassing. We don't want to talk about it in the family. I remember 7 or 8 years ago, I was at a conference, and a lieutenant from the Quincy Police Department, and he had like 40 years service, and he talked about going to where there was a domestic. And it was kind of all washed under, if there was something severe, there
Right.
were arrests.
Right.
But nobody wanted to talk about it. We need to talk about it at any time.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No.
absolutely, Chief.
And that's the great thing about today is that we have these programs. Again, just what you were saying. When I started my law enforcement career, you sent the man off for the night somewhere else, and there were no rights for the women or anything like that. And
Nowhere
but
to
today,
go.
no, there was no place to go. I mean, if necessary, I know we have safe homes we can send them to and locations and things like that.
Well, we
if it's
have
really-
shelters.
Shelters, yes, there we go.
I think we've lost the funding for safe homing.
Yeah.
But we've
But there are shelters
there are
available.
shelters,
Right.
and we work really closely, and they're 24/7 access, meaning they can call our hotline any time of the day or any day of the year, and they can look up SafeLink and see every shelter in the state of Mass and where there's a bed available. So a lot of times holidays bring out the violence.
Sure.
So there's this incident that's too bad to go home, make a phone call. They can get you somewhere. May not be on Cape,
Right.
but you'll be safe.
But you'll be safe.
Yeah.
And that's what the bottom line is. That's what our job is as law
Right.
enforcement, and that's what your job is as advocates and working for the courts and things like that. Is safety, making sure they're safe.
Exactly, Chief.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, this has been, I think, some phenomenal information to get out there. I don't know if there's anything else you think, anything really super important. We've pretty much covered it.
From the agency perspective, thank you for having us here, me here representing the agency as Carmen is. Greatly appreciated. Getting the word out.
Getting
Thank
the
you.
word out. Yeah,
Thank
no. Again, I want to thank my guest today because this is a very important subject and everything. I also want to remind everybody, all the viewers, about White Ribbon Day. The first one is Thursday, March 5th at the Cape Cod Community College in the cafeteria, and locally here in Falmouth on March 12th, 9 to 10 a.m. at the Falmouth Public Library in the Herman Room. Everybody is welcome, particularly men, to come and take that pledge. I will tell you this, the men and women of the Falmouth Police Department will be wearing white ribbons during that week, so if you happen to see them, and they're going to be able to explain, you may have a question why they got a white ribbon on. It's to support White Ribbon Day and to help prevent violence. So again, thank you both for being here and sharing this really important information. And if anybody has any questions, they can go to our website, the Falmouth Police Department, or just call us at the Falmouth Police Department. In the court, they can just call the court if they need to.
Call the
or-
court, but the best thing Carmen talked about, we've got a hotline number. They can call that. It's 24/7. The number is 800-439-6507.
Okay. We'll
Anytime.
make sure they scroll that on the TV when they show the show. That'd be awesome.
Thank you, Chief. Yeah, that's
Again,
great.
thank you everybody for participating in Behind the Badge, and I'm Chief Edward Dunn. And if you see something, please say something. Thank you.